feel like the darker lighting immediately just quiets things down. I feel like I should be whispering almost.
Maybe we could, except then I wouldn't be able to hear you.
Yeah, not a good idea.
I'm going deaf.
Why are you going deaf?
I don't know. It's pressure in my right ear. Some days it's perfectly fine, and then other days, depending on where I am, it'll be almost like there's water in my ear, but there's not. And I should really go to a doctor, but I just don't have the time to wait around. And then when I do think about it, it ends up being okay. And then the next day, I think it could be just an overabundance of earwax, because a lot of times it's worse in the morning.
Fix. Have you ever tried that trick where you get hydrogen peroxide and dump it in your ear?
I did that quite a bit. It didn't really work. It just started hurting my ear after a while.
Okay. See, the funny thing about that, when I was growing up, I think my brothers wanted to do that, or my mom helped them do that. We were just like little kids, and they found it relaxing. But I always thought that was a really weird thing to do, so I never wanted it. And then I first tried it, I think, and this is a strange time to try it too, but I was in university, and for years I had thought, my right ear just couldn't hear things as well as my left. I just grew to accept that because it was such a long-term thing. And eventually I tried that trick, so I was like, whatever, I'll just see if it helps. There was like such an amount of black earwax, like a huge amount that just came out of my right ear, and it was perfectly fine. After years and years of just putting it off, I could hear fine again. And I thought it was an interesting trick. I don't really know. I mean, I'm sure there's probably people that recommend against using hydrogen peroxide in your ears, but
I did some Googling before I put it in my ear.
Yeah.
And they said as long as when you put it in, there's no sharp pains, because there's something wrong with your eardrum. Hydrogen peroxide on the eardrum isn't a good.
No, if you got something torn open
but
or whatever.
It is a kind of, not an old wives' tale, but it is a kind of an older style trick, and it does work. But I would lay down for like 20 minutes, so I'd do it in bed, and I'd lay down on my side and just feel it in, and the sensation of the bubbles in my ear and the sound, it was very odd.
Yeah, it is very, very odd. It's very uncomfortable to sit like that for an extended period of time. So like the first couple seconds, it's kind of jarring, but then you get used to it for a couple minutes, and then it just starts getting irritating after that.
Mm-hmm.
There are alternatives. There's people that get like earwax removals. There's, I guess, ways of doing it with like, I wouldn't really call it tweezer, but like a vacuum kind of thing that can like scrape stuff. There's like a water treatment method. There's tons of videos on YouTube. There's like a cult following of these things because people find it, I guess, satisfying to see an ear that's really messed up just be fixed.
I'll let a doctor do it at some point. Yeah. I'm sure it's just an ear, like an earwax type thing. I can't imagine, like when somebody says they're going deaf, I imagine going deaf is a gradual thing, and it's not something like, oh, it's good today, oh, it's bad today.
No, probably not.
I would imagine it being just a slope of, oh, it's getting worse. What'd you say? Huh?
Yeah.
I got very, very used to saying excuse me. I know. Don't say what. It's excuse me. Pardon me.
That's a thing with Canada, too. If you wanted to have that looked at, there's a big wait period to get to see a specialist usually, because you got to go to a general practitioner or just like a walk-in clinic or whatever, and then you have to get a recommendation to a doctor from there, and it's usually a pretty big wait unless it's something that's an emergency, and even then sometimes it's still weeks and maybe months away, so it's a bit of a pain.
Maybe in my upcoming days off I can go and just say, hey, I think there's an overabundance of wax in this ear.
You use Q-tips?
I try to avoid it because you're not really supposed to use them in your ear.
But yeah, I tried them as a kid, like very young, and it's fine. But I just stopped using them at some point because I didn't really find that they did anything for me. And then very recently, like within the past year, since Tila has them, I've gotten back into using it.
They feel good.
It's
a weird sensation.
Yeah.
I pushing them too far in. I'm like, yeah, this can't be good. But just going, this is probably the most riveting conversation we've ever had on here. But just going around the rim of the ear, that's kind of where they're at their best. But
There's a lot of stuff like that where I guess people don't find it interesting about the human body or want to talk about it, but that's a lie, because there's so many people like just on these online forums that are just like interested in like what's going on with my ear. It's got this problem, and like, oh yeah, I have that problem. I did this to fix it, and this is a strange public embarrassment about it, I guess. Just talking
If you want to talk about my ears, that's fine. Embarrassment, it's weird. A lot of that has disappeared for me. I don't necessarily get shy. Some things I won't talk about with certain people, but I think the overall, I'm afraid they'll judge me or something like that, that has disappeared over the past few years. Maybe not 100%.
No.
But definitely a lot more.
Something about leaving a school environment where you have peers and you feel like you have to fit in and all that, whether you know it or not, and just going out and doing your own thing in the world, you kind of just leave a lot of that behind, I think. Even in university, I didn't really rely too much on like social connections, so I kind of just did my own thing, and I dropped a lot of my cares about needless worries like that. So yeah, and then you get to have more genuine conversations that way. I find if you don't really care what somebody will think if you say a certain thing, you get more.
You said something yesterday which intrigued me, and I was wondering if you'd elaborate on it. Maybe you were just making a joke, and this whole question is it's going to go to shit.
Started something.
We were playing that card game, and
which one? The most likely to whatever.
Yeah, most likely to whatever.
Okay.
And the thing was most likely to have peaked in high school. And you had said that you didn't have a like. What was your high school experience like? I know we've covered certain aspects of it.
At that night, I just said I was shitty in high school.
But how so? Because you're not stupid. You're a very smart person. Were you bored?
Maybe. A lot of people describe whether it's for good or bad. Like a lot of people say, oh, high school was the worst. It was this worst time. Or other people say, it was great. I got to do all these activities. It was a great time. I'm pretty neutral about the entire experience. I don't find it like people I'm around constantly recalling memories. Oh, back in, when I was in 11th grade or whatever, this happened. And I was like, I don't really remember much of high school. And even if I did, it's not noteworthy in the slightest. And I don't know if that's because of who I was as a person, and maybe I could have been more outgoing, but it's not particularly memorable. I think that everything got a lot better after that, as far as life being exciting and actually finding something that motivated me. Didn't really have. I think
it's probably for a lot of people. Yeah. You leave high school, you're able to find yourself. But then on the flip side, for me, I always think, like a lot of people would, there are certain people that treat high school as maybe they should. Like it's incredibly important, and for some people it is. I knew going into high school that I was never going to be a doctor. I didn't aspire to be a doctor. Some people I went to school with did. Some people are well on their way to being doctors. They definitely had to take high school. Not that I didn't take it seriously, but they definitely had to take high school a lot more serious than I did. They definitely weren't taking the drama classes as electives like I was.
No.
But that's...
As far as what I thought of doing, because I did maybe see something medical as being an interest to me when I was in high school. I
see you being a doctor.
And that was fine. But I also, at the same time, took shop classes in my elective because I was like, well, this is a good backup plan. I maybe thought of being a welder at that point or something like that. Although that was very short-lived because I don't really think it's that interesting to be a welder, especially now. But going into university, it's the positive side of existentialism, because you're faced with all of these things and you realize that not only is this whole university thing all bullshit and kind of a lie that society thrusts upon you, that you have to go have this experience and you're going to be greatly successful because of it or something, which I had to have believed at least a little bit in order to invest so much money into it. But more so, it's that being this doctor that I thought I could be wouldn't make me happy anyways. So what's the point? And it's this sort of existential thought of, well, like, what do I actually want to do with my life? And having that burden sort of gone, being out of school and even out of university now, it's sort of lifted off your shoulders and you have a lot more room to explore what you want to do, with the one contingent feature being you can't let this idea of lack of free time get you down. Because I know a lot of people work same kind of hours that I do, and they tell me, I just want to go home and relax, or I want free time, I want me time, I want this. They want to, sit in front of the TV or whatever they want to do.
Some mutual people that we know of.
There's many people that are like this, and it's not really a knock on them, but it defeats this possibility of you becoming what you want to be, in the sense of maybe pursuing a hobby that could be something more. Like photography was it for me, at least before. That was something I loved to do, and I, at least I was in school at the time, so I had a bit more time to pursue it and get good at it, which was a great opportunity. But now that I'm working, sure, there's less time, but you still got to make that time count. It's this seizing of an opportunity kind of thing, which with the existentialism, of the high school days off your shoulder, whatever, like who you're supposed to be lifted away, you can freely make a decision in that direction, I think. It's liberating, kind of.
It is. I found out something very interesting just a few short days ago. My contact, my union contact, who lives in Tilsonburg.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. When I first met him, I thought it was interesting when I first started talking to him, rather, I thought that it was interesting that I come all the way to Niagara, been living here for, at that point, 7 years, and the contact to get me into the start of my career was in Tilsonburg. It's kind of interesting. Now I find out that not only is he in Tilsonburg, but he only lived 4 doors down from me for the good chunk of actually all of my high school years. So my formative, hey, I'm going to be a filmmaker, I walked by his house every day.
When did you get in contact? Like, when did you first know of this guy's existence?
Last year, somebody came into my dad's car wash and was like, I have a bunch of cars that need wash. Dad's like, fine. So he brings in a few, and they're all kind of higher end cars. And at some point, my dad's like, where are these coming from? Do you own a dealership or something? He's like, no, these are cars for a film shoot or a TV shoot or whatever. And my dad, thinking that film is a generalization and working in film is everything that I'm qualified for.
Ubiquitous thing.
Yep. It's like, oh, my son, so on and so forth. And the guy's like, oh, well, give him my contact information and let me talk to him. And when I talked to him last summer, he's like, basically the same spiel as he gave me this year. But he said, I realized what it's like coming from a small town, or coming from Tilsonburg. You might think there's no way you're going to be able to do that. And if you stick with me, it'll make it work, or I'll make it work. Then he got busy last summer, so he stopped returning my calls. I got busy with weddings. I thought, that's an interesting opportunity. Just didn't work out. So time went on. And then my dad again this year said, the guy came back in. He said, you should call him. He got really busy. So I'm like, here we go again. I called him again, and the first thing he did was apologize. He said, I got so busy last year. It was a busy year for shoots, and when I wasn't working, I was asleep for like 8 months straight. Like, it was just work, sleep, work, sleep. So I didn't just ignore you. I ignored everybody. She's like, if you're still into it, that's great. So he gave me all the information and then made the decision, took the course, and here we are. So talking to him, it's funny because I had everything that went down with beaties and whatnot, and the fact that Toronto's kind of in its normal, or what I perceive as them calling it a normal winter months, where the productions are wrapping up and there's just a few small productions because most won't shoot through Christmas. No. And then they'll pick up again next year. That stressed me out. And lo and behold, he called and he just checked in. So I don't know if it's because when he doesn't hear from me for a while, he must think I'm stressing out or something, but he called. He's like, you've worked a few days? I'm like, yeah. It's like, well, just keep grinding through. 3 years from now, you'll be 30, you'll be in the union, and you'll be looking back thinking, what the fuck just happened? Like,
it's a pretty big promise.
It's a huge promise. So I'm taking it with a grain of salt, but 75 to 85% of what he said has been true. The work's been a little lower than I thought, but turns out that there's ways to work it, but now there's no work that I can work myself into. Mm-hmm. But he also did say, since I'm more qualified as a quote unquote stagehand, we'll just call it that, the productions start up again in March. But that's not when they start building.
No.
They'd be starting to build late January, February. So it could actually work out quite well.
Might have lots to do.
And then I'm slowly working on my fully self-employed schedule. And I've decided that in some capacity every week I'm going to do one or two small little projects, be it to go out and take some sort of creative photo or video just to create content. Because I was always very intrigued by your photo portfolio.
It's pretty, I don't know what you would do necessarily videography wise, because that's not something I had to worry about, although vlogs seem like the thing that you would pick up on that. Photo wise, I just loved everything. I love photographing just about everything. There wasn't anything I wouldn't try.
That's what I'm intrigued to do. And then to do the winter stuff too. I want to do like some nice winter photos. Yeah. We have
the Pocket Wizard set. Yes, that changes the game quite a bit for two reasons. One of them that's a bit more relevant to our daily lives is at weddings. If we want to use the strobes in a ceremony, we now can without having somebody trigger them. You with their own, little bridge camera flash or whatever. Because usually we've been using the remote triggering using the flash, but now it's just a wireless system where it's a radio. So you can do that, and we have now an amped up distance capability that we can use anywhere. If we want to use them outdoors, as long as you have something to power the strobes, or you could just use wireless like speed lights. Doesn't really matter. You can trigger them, 200 feet away? Something like that?
I think that's it. I think I was reading there's a range extension that'll...
Yeah. 200 feet's plenty to play with, in my opinion. You could do just about anything you want. I've seen lots of cool effects. One specifically, I remember somebody hung a bunch of old speed lights with the triggers on them from like trees down like a road, and when they triggered it, it lit up the whole road, but like just in the middle of like the desert or something. Like not really desert because it was trees, but it's like on the side of a highway. Anyways, it looked really cool. But you can do a lot of unique lighting stuff with that you could otherwise couldn't achieve.
With something like that, because the Pocket Wizard you can only use 4, or is it 4?
I think you can use more with some setups. Some kits come with 4, because they come with a transmitter, maybe 3 receivers.
Oh, okay.
It really depends.
When you're doing something like that, you're just setting up your winding dirt road with your flashes. Would you only trust brand name, or would you go, I can't pronounce
flashes?
Yeah.
No, go dirt cheap. In fact,
you can get some really good dirt cheap ones.
You can, and the funny thing, and this is not to pick on Canon users, but it is the true thing. I think that Nikon has had better speedlights than anybody, especially Canon, as far as old speedlights go, because you can pick up a lot of those for like $30. It's I can't remember exactly which model's the one. A lot of people pick it, probably the SB15 or something. But anyways, those are great. They're so dirt cheap, and they're rugged, they're powerful, they're everything you need for if you just want to have something out in a bush somewhere that's got a trigger on it. Great little flash. But yeah, you can pick them up all day long. I wouldn't trust like a old Minolta flash from like the 80s or something, but there's definitely lots of options on the cheap side.
Some nice Chinese or Japanese made flashes on Amazon for $50 or less.
If they're Yongyo, sure, but otherwise, that's a bit weary.
That's what I was getting to, without butchering the name. But
there's probably a lot of freaky names, anyways.
But no, that's exciting, and that'll be neat, and hopefully get a little bit more. It's fun when I started doing it, and you could argue that it kind of was related anyways, but between doing the baby photos and the wedding side of things, I didn't really do anything outside of it. And that was a bad mentality, because I didn't get to flourish as a creative person. And then, I don't know, probably about March or April 2016, I met you. And ever since then, I've had to challenge myself to keep up with you, and it's been fun. So
maybe what we could do, because we've talked about lots of branch offs from the podcast, but it'd be cool just to have like a segment where we go out and shoot stuff. And I don't know, even just something with GoPros would be easy enough to do, and we could, I don't know, just find something to do. The trickiest part about it is getting it to work on daylight hours for both of us, because it's the winter time. The sun is out from like, I don't know, maybe 7 in the morning until about 5:30, and that's now. It's going to get worse as we proceed into December, but it's not a lot of daylight hours.
And even then, 5:30, it was pretty much dark at 5 tonight. Like,
and you can do stuff at night. I mean, maybe that's what the show would have to be centered around, is night photography. What can you
that
do
is something that I am so. I want to say I'm underdeveloped in, because I have a few of my kind of favorite nighttime shots and I know how to do it, but I'd say my portfolio is less night and more day. I think most people's like that, but
yeah. Well, the thing is, with nighttime, if you're talking about photographing people, which is kind of where the money's at for us, it's all strobe work. It's all speed lights or whatever, and then you have to get creative because and it is how the wedding industry operates, where you just have a speed light on top of your camera, you blast it straight forward or up or whatever, and you get this flat lighting. And you know what? That's the wedding style. That's what it is. But it's boring. It's not what you need for model shoots or stuff like that. So you have to get really creative with how you're going to light stuff up. And then you need it to be wireless, and you need remotely triggered flashes, and then you might need a permit depending on where you are, and it gets kind of hairy.
There was a video that I was watching, and this guy was showing the difference between a $10,000 flash setup compared to a like $400 flash setup, and he tried to duplicate the $10,000 setup, which of course were wireless strobes and whatnot, and he had like 4 of them. And with the cheaper one, he had a kind of white Bristol board below the model to act as an uplight and whatnot. So we really obviously purposely cheaped out on the lower end one. I wouldn't necessarily use a milk crate and piece of Bristol board if you're getting paid to do it, but it does show that you can get similar results.
Effort compensates for lack of money in that situation, which is a lot of the photography stuff.
But I'm really excited to be able to try to do something kind of glamorous at night. And for our situation, there's a lot of interesting lighted areas that you go to in the falls and in St. Catharines and stuff. So there's something I think we can do interesting with lights in the background. Everybody's always, going for the bokeh shots where there's just all these orbs about the scene. And it can look really dazzling for sure. It's a very desirable kind of look for a lot of these model shoots. And for such. That place that you sent with all the lights in the falls, it's a public place. Mm-hmm. And if we're not getting, paid for the photo shoot, and we just have a camera and a flash on a tripod, I think a photography permit isn't necessarily needed.
No, I don't think so. Should be a lot of fun. Videography wise, it'd be cool to, maybe you could go in the direction of local documentaries, really, but that's not really our style. It's not really our product necessarily, so it's kind of hard to do. We do commercial work, and we do wedding work and stuff like that, but it'd be like nobody's gonna pay you to do a documentary necessarily unless you're selling it to.
It all depends on how you spin it. There is a definite similarity between documentary and business highlight or something like that. Like it could be, most documentaries have some sort of sit-down interview type thing with a bunch of B-roll, so it's not necessarily a narrative documentary, but documentary style, business highlight, business.
I think a more documentary in like the form of like a journalistic approach, where it's not about, it's about finding truth more than anything. So if there's something negative to say about somebody, then it needs to be said, kind of thing. That is my favorite kind of work if I was to be shooting something. I love especially the Planet Earth series, which are just the wildlife documentary. It's amazing.
There's a great interview I listened to. Where do you stand on the JFK assassination?
What about it? Conspiracy theory stuff or what?
Yeah. Like,
I've watched some of the videos that are more conspiracy typed and
what do you think? One shooter to kill them all, or was it a...
No idea.
No idea?
I have no idea.
I've mentioned them before, but Valuetainment. They do some very, very good long-form interviews. A little bit more interview style than Joe Rogan, in the sense that it's question answer. There's not a lot of conversation. Mm-hmm. But to mark the 55 years since the assassination, which was on the 24th.
Okay.
Yesterday. Maybe the 23rd. I can't remember. Might have been yesterday, though. He had one of the coroners from the JFK assassination on, who just recently wrote a book, so good timing, obviously. Mm-hmm. And it was a very, very riveting interview from somebody who isn't a whack job, but somebody who spent his entire life as a coroner, figuring out how people died and all the details and whatnot. Mm-hmm. It's about an hour long, so it's a good length interview, but you should check it out.
You figure he'd been interviewed before this instance, if he had such a close relation to the case.
From what I get from the interview, for the longest time, especially with stuff like that, he wasn't told to be quiet, but he, for the longest time, just didn't really think about it, because it wasn't ever a conspiracy at the beginning.
No.
And then the conspiracy had grown, and then eventually he just got tired of it. But it all kind of came to light when Trump released some of the JFK documents, like 6 months ago or something like that, because
it did show attempts to obscure some information.
Yes.
Yes.
And I think the timelines might be a little bit off, but I think that with normal cases, you're only able to keep the evidence secret for, I believe it's 35 years. But because of the high profile matter of the case, they were able to get all the evidence locked up for 55 years, which for the majority of the people that worked on that case, including this coroner who is questioning whether or not he'll actually make it to the 55-year mark. Yeah, no.
Because you just said it already is the 55-year mark.
It is the 55-year mark. Maybe it's 75.
So, okay, that's success. That's not going to happen.
Anyways, they extended it more or less, most people think, just so that way by the time everything comes out, anybody who witnessed it is dead.
Yep.
So there's no argument. But the way the interview is laid out and the way that he explains how the body was found and whatnot, it is kind of interesting. Then they show the video, and it's an actual angle that I've never seen before. I've seen camera roll from the assassination, but it's a video angle that I don't think I've ever seen before, and it definitely does look like there might have been an initial shot, but I don't know. I will probably actually buy this guy's book, though.
Sounds interesting enough. I could have sworn that there was two angles. One is the one that everybody knows, and the other one's a little more choppy. It's a bit less watchable, but maybe there's a third one but I feel like it'd be weird for it to be coming out now. It'd be weird to have a new angle of that now.
Maybe all this time. You are right. It is odd that there'd be a new angle, but maybe it was just something that I missed. The reviews are in. Shane and Heather's wedding video is great.
That's great.
It's great.
That sounds good.
Just got that message. So great.
Perfect.
Good job, Justin.
I assume that they watched the whole thing. Maybe tonight. I assume they watched it all tonight in one sitting, probably.
Well, it's a pretty short video.
Yeah.
So.
That was good.
Yeah. So that's wonderful. Not to go into conspiracies, but is there anything that you think, I mean, outside of the flat earth jokes and whatnot, is there anything that you think that isn't what people say it is?
This one's kind of more deep, and I guess not I don't know if it's a conspiracy theory, but anyways, the people who do go wholeheartedly into it are definitely compared to nut jobs. There are a lot of people that don't buy into the current arguments about quantum mechanics and things like that in a science level. So like we're talking, fabric of the universe kind of shit.
Okay.
They don't. There's a lot of this that relies on like just creating a lot of excessive particles associated with lots of different forces in the universe, and the gist of the argument is that it can be summarized much more simply, and humans don't necessarily have a way of doing that yet. But a lot of these people are really big into describing the world with magnetism and saying that certain things like the double slit experiment is just it's bullshit because there's some other way to explain it. The tricky part about this one is that while I do believe there's some credibility in saying, yeah, probably don't know everything about quantum physics, is I don't understand what either side is saying entirely, so I don't know. But it interests me. It's probably the one that I buy into more than anything, that I try to keep up with it, where people will try to refute certain... a lot of people say that, in this camp, say that the work of specifically Albert Einstein was just... He was an idiot. He did a lot of stuff that was contrary to discoveries that we had made before, and that he was going in the wrong direction. Describing... Not exactly sure exactly what... Yeah, it's really tricky on the spot, because again, like if I'm reading it, I can try to follow it as much as I can, but I still don't fully understand it because I'm not a quantum physicist. I never went to school for that kind of stuff.
Full disclosure, neither am I.
No.
So
I did have a lot of interest in school in just more macroscopic things. I think everybody takes pretty much the Newtonian physics in their first year of university if they're doing that kind of stuff. And then I took one on thermodynamics, and I took one, I think maybe on optics, a couple different physics courses, and I found them all fairly interesting, but nothing that's at that kind of level. But and I sucked at chemistry in university. Out of all of the sciences that were most related to my biology course, I didn't like the way they taught chemistry, especially organic chemistry. Although I'm sure very few people did, because I heard like the class average for my class was like 54. So, and I beat that. So that's about all I got.
What'd you get?
I don't remember. It wasn't good. It was like 60 something. I think it was the lowest grade I got in all of university.
I think if you successfully beat the average, that's good. Except for the
But then you look around at the people and you're like, yeah, I hope I beat these people. Because there's definitely a large chunk of university students, especially in first year, which anybody going into university will notice this. First 2 years, just you're going to weed out a lot of people that are not there for the right reasons. They're just partying, or they're not interested in what they're learning at all.
But you, like that, I had that too. And that's an interesting thing, because you would think that anybody who's there for the college or university lifestyle wouldn't be in something. So, because you went to school for...
Biology.
Right, biology.
Yeah.
I went to school for film production. People who are there to party and whatnot, I don't think would go for... and I'm obviously wrong.
They're on a different track, because a lot of the reasons why I went to university in the first place was the pressure, just societal pressure, parent pressure, whatever it is, to achieve something, and you think that this is the way to do it. You think that going to university and going for this academically minded course is the right way to do it. Same goes for business courses or anything else. If that's the direction they've been steered in, but their head was never in it to necessarily get a career in the first place, or they don't take it seriously much sooner on, then I think they'd be more likely to just not focus on their studies. A lot of people, definitely, I would argue that less than half of all high school students should even consider post-secondary. Something I would wholeheartedly say that there's better ways to achieve what you want in life than going through that. And maybe we could drive the prices of university a little bit down, make it a little bit less competitive in the sense of like, you could have a lot of money and just make it more for the brilliant people that could achieve most academically, which is what scholarship programs try to do, I suppose, but I don't know how well they work.
Half of high school people going to post-secondary makes sense. I think in certain cases it should be higher. As I've said before, 100%. I do believe that you should really consider and really think hard whether or not you would go to a film course or a photography course, the Niagara College photography course. And I say this with respect to some of the teachers that I know. I find it to be stupid.
Sounds like a joke to me.
They
Teaching art like that.
They extend it to 2 years, so that way it's a certificate course. But even our film professors said, because the first semester, the first 2.5 months in our film course, we were just taking pictures. That was the fundamentals. And we were taking film pictures because they said you're not going to be able, if you can't properly expose one picture and you can't compose one picture, how can you compose 24 pictures a second?
Okay.
It's a good mentality.
That's a strange thing to say because the burst rates of some film cameras were higher than most DSLRs were for a long time, but sure. Take off. Don't have a motor drive on your camera, I guess.
But the teachers also said that basically in this 2.5 month span, you're learning exactly what the first year of film or photography students will learn.
Mm-hmm.
So the fact that they expanded it that much, it could have been a 1 year course. 1 year course isn't that bad.
No.
If you want to learn the fundamentals, they got opportunity that not everybody gets to do. They had a ton of models come in. They got to do some nude model photography, stuff like that, product photography in a well-funded environment.
Mm-hmm.
But I just don't think it should have been 2 years. And I think the film production route, good equipment and more equipment than what I could afford with what I paid to go to school. I'll give them that.
Mm-hmm.
Right? We're using equipment that costs my tuition in some cases. So there is merit there, but you do have to think long and hard. And I was trying to get at this with Kevin too, because I went to Niagara College and I probably shouldn't have. I'm glad I did, but I probably shouldn't have, because it wasn't the film production that I wanted. It was very tech heavy. The film production was there, but the creative side, the interesting side, even though I spent a lot of time editing, that was less focused on. It was more the technical side, which is fine, and I still enjoy it. But
so it would be almost. I don't know what place offers the course. Sheridan.
Sheridan's more story driven.
Yeah.
And they were weird for the longest time. I'm glad they went away from that. But with Sheridan, you pay for your tuition, and any film that you shoot, you're not given a limit. But any film that you shoot, you paid for the exposing and whatnot of the film. So you'd pay for all the lab costs and the digitizing and whatnot out of pocket. Wasn't included in the tuition.
That's rough.
At least with Niagara, you were given a set amount of film, which most film productions are given a set amount of film anyways.
Yeah.
And that's included. And I think that's kind of the smarter way to do, because nowadays it doesn't matter because shooting digital. But
all digital. Back
then, at least you knew what you had and you knew you had to accomplish with, that set amount.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of neat.
I wonder if they'll bring back any film component of that at any point. I know Kodak is trying to bring back their Super 8 line of film, and there's weird novelty in that, but I don't know if it'll ever be taken seriously again.
I don't know if it'll ever be on the, sounds weird to say, but I'm going to call it lower end market, only because older directors, Spielberg, he wants to shoot film, he shoots film. That's just the way it is. They will shoot film, and he is allowed to do that. So it'll never go away. It's rare, and a lot more films are shot completely digitally. Mm-hmm. But if you're a film director with enough clout and you want to shoot film, they will let you. So obviously there are still up to date and complete, not necessarily completely modern. I guess there'd have to be completely modern film cameras unless they're using something from years ago, but
That I'd be curious about. I mean, you could look at film photography. Nikon sells the F6. I don't know if they sell the FM10 anymore. That's it. Canon discontinued their SLR. Every once in a while, there's a weird new company that jumps into the scene and has something, but for the most part, you can't buy a new film camera. I'm actually curious if I was on Amazon and I just searched 35mm film camera, because Amazon's not going to sell old stuff like eBay or like used stuff, so it sort of weeds out the possibility of that happening, I would say. But I'm curious if there is anything you can buy, new inventory, 35mm wise. And I swear Nikon's probably the only one doing it. Film camera. And there's still disposable cameras, I should add. Loading my search right now.
you're doing research, I'll do research. I'm going to see if Steven Spielberg has a preferred camera.
Yeah, I don't know anything about video film cameras. Couldn't list a single model, actually. It was kind of a strange thing, I'd have to say. I think your NAS is working overtime because the internet's really slow.
What network are you on? I've been having some speed issues with certain ones. It's a bit odd. I haven't been able to...
I did upload most of a wedding before I came here, so
maybe that's why.
It's still coming. I don't know. Not exactly sure. Hey, there we go. Okay. Funny enough, look up 35mm film camera, and the first thing that comes up is a sponsored ad from Fujifilm X100F. Very film body style. It's a great camera. But then you get Ilford HP5 Plus, which is actually my favorite black and white film to shoot on. But you get one roll of that for $16, which is way too much. And here's the funny thing. There actually is used film cameras. You can get a Canon AE1 35mm. That's from the 1970s. It's not new. I don't know why it's on Amazon. It costs $288. I can tell you damn right, don't buy that. Go to eBay and spend maybe $100. They also have a Minolta SRT 201. I have that camera. It's a pretty tough camera. Probably it was before Minolta went a little bit cheaper on their build quality, I would say. I think it's fully mechanical, so you don't even need a battery to operate it. There's an Olympus OM2. Interesting. The Olympus cameras tend to be a little bit overpriced, in my opinion. I've never actually owned one of those, but they seem to be pretty hot cameras to buy. I guess a lot of people learn to shoot on them. They have a Pentax ME, Canon FTB, and that's about it. Yeah, that's all that I see. Oh, they have a Canon EOS 1000. That's a piece of junk. See, I didn't know that they sold old stuff like that on Amazon. I thought it was...
Well, they sell used items, so...
They do, but I don't know. I never see anything quite so old as that. Ew. A Nikon EM for $200. That I wouldn't pay $10 for that camera. That's probably one of the most rejected Nikon phone cameras of all time.
Well, the reviews are in from 2018. The most popular the most popular movie cameras, at least for this list, could be a slightly skewed list. The number one most popular camera is the Arri Alexa, which you might not know what that is, but that's the most common one. And the second most common one is the Red Epic Dragon.
Okay. Which is understandable. Red's got a pretty good foothold in the market.
Or the Red Helium. Bo Burnham just shot a movie on the Red Helium.
What did Bo Burnham shoot?
Yeah, it's a movie called 8th Grade.
Okay. Is he starring in it?
I think he's just directing.
He's just directing. Yeah. I like Bo Burnham. I should probably check that out.
Arri Alexa. The Arri Alexa has it.
Yeah.
It's a red weapon.
The question I'd have is that Alexa camera, is that a PL mount camera, or what are people using with it? Because I don't know anything about the platform, but I assume it's got to be similar to Red, where you can have removable storage and you get all sorts of accessories that you would have put with it to really build any kit out of it whatsoever. And even then,
I'm
not sure.
It's a fairly modular camera.
Yeah.
I think it's actually, this is an older one. It's fairly, oh, that's rental.
Does it look like a TV camera?
Show you a picture.
Sure. Hey, it looks quite a bit like something Red would put out, I would say. Yeah, it just looks like a very modular camera. Maybe a little bit more on the Sony stylistically, kind of. But, I mean, Sony's camcorders are pretty good too.
We shot on Arri cameras in college on film. So they had old film cameras, and then once they went digital, they were in bed with Red. So I don't know if they were in bed with Red, but that's what we were using. So it's kind of neat. It would be neat to go back to school to be able to use that equipment now that I don't suck.
Which is probably thing that some people must do. I don't know if you could go back to college and just take a slightly different course like 10 years later if you would want to do that.
I don't know either.
Be interesting. I don't know. It feels like cheating almost. Like if I went back to university now and did some other science program, it'd be so easy. Oh my God, they have it so easy there. I don't know. I mean, once you get up to like this level of fourth year in thesis projects again, okay, fine. It gets a bit tricky again, but those first 3 years, you've nothing to worry about. Well, provided you're getting a loan, so you're, not working. Then it's hard. That's the adult problem, is that you got to keep working while you're in school.
No, they should, for alumni, they should have you be allowed to come back for a week.
For a week.
Or something, or a few days. It'd be actually a great... Niagara College actually should do it, because it'd be a great way for students to be able to tell how Niagara College affected their life.
You just get like a demo of how it is in the school? Like you go in for 3 days or whatever?
Are you saying if I did?
No, I'm saying like, what are you proposing?
I'm proposing that as Niagara College alumni, we should be allowed maybe in 2020, 10 years after we started, to go back for a few days, use the Niagara College equipment.
I would just be able to use their equipment. That'd be great.
And come up with a short film. Call it like a 48-hour Niagara College Film Festival with Niagara College grads, and use what we've learned in school and out of school to see how much better we've become.
Be interesting. Definitely could be good promotion for the school.
Right. And of course, that's just me saying, gee, I'd love to use that equipment when I have equipment that's capable of doing something and I could just do it myself.
It's true. It's true.
But no,
I want to go back to something from the beginning of this podcast.
Okay.
When you mentioned that your connection into the film union lived just like 4 doors down from you, doesn't that make you want to just like reach out to wherever we are now and just find these kind of people and just do something with them collaboratively? Because that's kind of what we've done with the podcast. We've had some people on here that are interesting in way different positions than we are.
What do you mean? Like neighbors or people that I know of?
But like quite literally neighbors. Like who is around us? We should get to know these people. It's a social networking thing.
It's true.
People who tend to do that tend to be the politician types, but like it makes you more charismatic to know.
You're telling me I should run for mayor?
Maybe. How is there an age restriction on who can be mayor?
I don't think so. Yeah. And if there is, I'm past it. I'm assuming it would just be of adulthood.
Yeah, that would make sense.
Which would be tough in certain cases, because I'm pretty sure you wouldn't be able to announce that you're running if you weren't an adult. So you'd have to be an adult when you do start running. So there's that drawn out period where you're not as young as you could have been.
No.
I'm not going to run for mayor.
No, you don't want to.
I have one good platform, and that's it. And the only thing, and I think this is a great idea, it's a great way to save taxpayers' money. We in Canada are very fortunate to have baby bonus.
Yes.
Right? And that's a wonderful thing for parents.
Quebec specifically, I think that's where that is.
Pardon me?
You're talking about the incentives where the government pays you to have more children?
No, the baby, you're given
just talking about
you're given a monthly amount for a new baby to help with the kind of just the cost of living with a baby.
Mm-hmm.
And depending on situations, I believe it is a flat rate. But the problem with that is the only thing you do to acquire said baby bonus is
have a baby.
Have a baby. And you have to like fill out the form and send it. Doing baby photography, I found out that there's a lot of parents that could really have done with even a weekend course. And there are parenting courses for new parents out there.
Yeah. But a mandatory one.
Hear me out.
Okay.
You can still qualify for the baby bonus 100%. But the only way that you will get the baby bonus is by taking and passing the 2-day course. You don't have to take it. If you do not want to take it, that's fine, but you don't qualify for the baby bonus. So that way the people that have already had kids or are a little bit more well off and don't need the baby bonus don't have to take the course. Because unfortunately, the people that do need the baby bonus sometimes aren't the best parents.
It's true.
That's
I don't
the
know
younger
if a 2-day
people.
course is going to fix stupid.
At the very least, it would teach you how to change a baby.
That's fine. There's people that want to be good parents, and I'm sure that's fine. But there's a lot of people that are going to be irresponsible regardless of what you try to force upon them, education-wise.
That's true, but
And where does the funding for this program come in, and how does it save money necessarily? Because maybe less people have the baby bonus, but you have to make it to pay people to instruct.
I haven't worked out. It was me. It's always been on the back of my mind. I haven't really worked out the economics of it. I'm assuming that the cost of running a program versus paying out hundreds of thousands of dollars a month to I feel like it would at the very least balance out, and you'd have more educated parents.
Sounds like a good
Even
concept.
if nobody, like you say, some people just, you can't fix stupid. That's true. But if you get through to one person that wasn't going to take the course, their baby may have a better go at it. Right? Or they may know that when the baby is crying at night, what they can do to help. So they don't, I mean, there's certain things that you,
I feel like there's got to be a lot of YouTube searches for
I feel like
how to deal with a baby,
I feel like that would be an industry that exists.
where people make YouTube videos just like teaching you how to raise your offspring.
Maybe my whole plan is totally negated by the internet. Who knows?
Maybe, because information's very accessible. You don't got to go to the library even to get at some book that you got to look for the answers and through the whole thing. Although, it'd be cool if you made it mandatory just for like, and this is way higher reaching, but just like mandatory for parents to read like a child psychology textbook. That'd be amazing. Nobody's going to do that, but you could learn so much.
How would you prove that you did? Would you have to have a test afterwards?
That'd be good, like a finals test in university. Big 3-hour test. Best and only textbook I ever read cover to cover was my psychology textbook.
Yeah?
Because it's just so insightful, and it's so... You can describe it in a way that's, I would argue, entertaining. So, that's what I like.
My best one is somewhere on that shelf.
Best textbook?
Yeah, the one that I've enjoyed the most.
Do you know what it's called exactly? I'd assume you would if it's your best.
Wait a sec.
It's not up there, is it? It's in your bathroom? Say that's a weird, I guess, toilet reading material.
It's somewhere.
Somewhere on the shelf that seems to contain about $200. I think...
It's not on the shelf.
No?
It was somewhere.
Oh.
It's lovingly called The Pincus.
The Pincus.
Yes, it's a film textbook. It was written by somebody with the last name Pincus, so people just call it The Pincus. That was how it was referred to. It covers everything. It is not an entertaining read, but if you read it cover to cover, you could know everything you need to know about film production in general.
Sounds like a pretty good recommendation.
Yes. And you can pick them up at many a local bookstores for a lot less than the college sells them. That was always... Tila introduced me to that Right Bookshop
Yeah, they're good.
years ago. I loved it. It's amazing how many of the Niagara College mandated books are there.
Yes, I'm sure a lot of them end up there.
So
I've bought lots of photography books from that guy.
I bought a lot of stuff there too. But that's a fun store to go to. That's as close to like just a magical...
You have no idea what you're going to find every time. It's not organized in a way that's conducive to finding exactly what you want, but if you're in the right section, you might. You just might.
Well, I know, because I
Chances
found a
are-
few Jimmy Buffett books there,
Yeah.
so I was in the right section.
If you're looking for it, chances are you'll find it because there's so many books.
Yeah, so it's kind of neat.
Yeah.
That's a business that you would think wouldn't be doing as well as it is, but
See, I don't know what kind of promotional stuff he does, but it'd be cool to talk to him.
that'd be fun.
I feel like I would love to make some kind of like video of just like rolling through the aisles of books like stacked to the ceiling and just like it could be like a maze. You could do like a gimmick where somebody gets lost. Be pretty good.
That'd be a place I'd like to get lost in.
Yeah. Not impossible to do. I wonder if the structure of that building has been altered in any way by the amount of weight in books and shelves that are in
I
it.
feel like that entire building's a fire hazard.
Yes. Oh, it was. I mean, the fire department ordered him to get rid of a significant number of stock, which is why there was like a huge sale on books for like an entire summer, maybe even a year. I don't remember how long it was, but yeah, it was bad before. There was too many books. It's not as bad now.
When was that? I feel it was at...
Like a year and a half ago, something.
Oh, so my major time there was before that happened, because that was an incredible amount of books. Like that was as I said, a magical
Yeah, it was
amount.
crazy. Maybe it was longer ago than that, because I think I was still living on St. Paul Street. I think it's been a good episode.
Yeah.
I think, we might have a guest next week, so
I'm going to try one way or another. Don't know
see if we
who,
can do it.
but we'll find somebody.
We'll find somebody. All right.
They're hard to find because you have to...
If you're an interesting person, we've said this before, contact us.
I feel like maybe I should just post that. Do you know somebody interesting? Because
Yeah. It's like the degrees of how many people... Kevin Bacon thing.
what if we just posted in
Somebody
like,
we know knows somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody
the
who knows somebody
Niagara
who knows
Market
Barack
or
Obama.
something like that? You might be able to find somebody.
Okay. Let's do
One
it.
way or another, guest. Stay tuned for next week. This has been a funny thing. Happened on the way to a podcast with Jesse.
And Eric.
Have a good night. This is Moody. The lights shall disappear.
Wait.
Goodbye. Ah! I'm gone. You are listening to my voice. You are listening